let's look at Section 6, license categories and requirements. Obviously, if you're going to apply for a license with ESCA, you will need to indicate under what category are you applying for. I mean, what sort of activities are you looking to do? Now, ESCA has 5 categories. The first one is dealing in securities. The second one is dealing in investments. And the third one is custody and clearing. The fourth is credit ratings. And the fifth is ranking and advice. Now, each of them has different capital requirements, and they might have different functions requirements. Now, let's start with the first one, which is dealing in securities. Generally, brokers, they deal in securities. This is the first category. Obviously, you need to be a legal person. That means a company which is incorporated within the UAE, or it can be a branch of a foreign company. What we need to remember is the capital required for category 1 is 30 million dirhams. Now, ESCA expects this company to have the following functions, the following job functions: a category manager or a brokerage manager, a compliance officer, and a risk manager. Generally, these are common across the other categories. So you will find these functions in the other 4 categories too. Well, most of them actually. You need to remember these functions, and you need to remember the capital requirements for each category. So that's for category 1, dealing in securities, brokerages. Let's look at category 2, dealing in investments, which is generally used for fund managers, anybody who handles money, portfolio managers. They usually go for category 2, dealing in investments. Again, they must be legal persons, right? There are some other mentioned in here or details. I'm not going to go into them because we've never seen details on these in the exam. We're just going to highlight quickly that the capital required is 50 million dirhams. Yes, we don't concentrate on all of the details. We only concentrate on the areas that CISI concentrates on the exam, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't read them. You should read them. The functions required under category 2 are, again, a category manager and a compliance officer, just like before. Also, a risk manager, just like before in category 1. But you should also have an investment operations manager. What is investment operations? This job function, and look, think of a fund. When a fund wants to invest in a certain investment, it has to buy that stock. So places an order with the broker. That stock needs to go through clearing and settlement. And these stocks and bonds that these funds invest in, they are going to attract dividends and coupons. And these need to be handled also. This is what we call investment operations. It's handling the operations of funds and on portfolio managers, which involve execution, clearing, settlement, custodians, and asset servicing. Asset servicing is the collection of the dividends and the coupons that we receive on our investments. So for category 2, we're going to need an investment operations manager. Category 3 are custodians and clearing houses and recording. Recordings means the registrars who keep records of the shareholders, who owns how many shares in what company. So this is the third category. Third category, custodians, clearing, and recording companies need to be joint stock companies. Joint stock companies are, again, sadly, neither CISI nor ESCA provide much information on what joint stock company means. Joint stock companies means companies that are owned by multiple shareholders. And they need to be operating in the field of securities or banks or branches of foreign banks. Now, for the rest of the categories, all of the categories, you can be a normal company, like a legal person, a limited liability company. That's fine. But if you want to apply for category 3, custody and clearing, you need to be a joint stock company. Now, one thing you're going to notice later in this qualification is that some brokerages, they can also be clearing houses. So you will see in the next chapters that there are brokers who are only traders, they only deal, and there are brokers who are both traders and clearing members. Just keep that in mind. Now, if you are going to be a depository bank or a depository bank agent, then you need to be a bank, either a local bank or a foreign bank branch. Just keep that in mind. Any capital market institution can practice the activity of registrar of private joint stock companies. So public joint stock companies are just like companies you have listed on the stock exchange. These are companies that have issued shares and they are owned by the public. A private joint stock company is the same way, issue shares, but they're owned by private individuals. Now, there are registrars, there are companies that keep list of the names of these private individuals or these private investors. And any institution in the capital market can do that activity. Any institution can keep a register of the investors or the shareholders of a private joint stock company. So what's the paid up capital for category 3? 50 million. If you are a subscriber on our e-learning portal, there's a special section available only to subscribers called the exam review highlights, where we get to summarize and list all of these important numbers. So you can go under the capital requirements, and then you can see the capital requirements of these different activities. So we've looked all through the book, everywhere CISI has mentioned capital requirements, and we have summarized them in bullet points for you. So what are the functions that ESCA expects for the third category? Category manager, just like before. Compliance manager, just like before. Risk manager, just like before. But there is a new one here, operations manager. If you're going to be a custodian or a clearinghouse, you're going to have an operations manager. But if you're only going to be keeping a registration list or a, records of owners of private joint stock companies, if that's the only activity you're going to have, then you don't need an operations manager. Category 4, and that's credit rating agencies. Example of these: Moody's, S&P, Fitch. These companies keep records. These companies give ratings to credit instruments. For example, a bond can be AA, BBB, which is basically a provision of opinion. So ESCA says you can be a credit rating agency in the UAE. That's fine. You need to be a legal person. That means you need to be a company. In the eyes of the law, a person is either a natural person, a human being, or a legal person, a company. So you need to be a legal person, and you can be a company licensed in a free zone in the UAE. That's fine, as long as you meet the following requirements. 1, you meet the requirements of the company's law and of the free zone requirements. 2, you carry your activity through your headquarters in the free zone or within the state of the UAE. 3, you need to have an agreement with the free zone regulator. Now, when we talk about free zone regulators, in the UAE in general, there are two main free zones for financial services: the DIFC and the ADGM. Together with ESCA, the DIFC's regulator and the ADGM regulators, these are the three financial regulators in the UAE. ESCA, DIFC's regulator, which is called DFSA, and the ADGM's regulator, which is called the ADGM Authority, I think. So you need to have, if you are not licensed from ESCA, and if you are within the free zone, you need to have an agreement with the free zone regulator, which is basically allows you to do practice credit rating. Your free zone regulator should allow you to practice credit rating, and any disputes that arise need to be done in the courts of the state. And thirdly, and more importantly, the regulator of your free zone needs to give approval to ESCA to practice its supervisory roles. So ESCA at any time can enter that free zone and then practice its regulatory and supervisory functions. The free zone regulator should not say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but we are a free zone and you have no jurisdiction here." No. ESCA should have jurisdiction, and that should be pointed out in your agreement with your regulator. Credit rating agencies require a paid-up capital of at least 5 million dirhams. What are the functions required? The same two as before, category manager and the compliance officer, but we have two new ones. Notice there is no risk manager here. The two new ones are credit rating analyst and credit rating analyst official. So what's the difference between an analyst and analyst official? Time for us to ask CISI and ESCA, because unfortunately they did not mention or specify or define what these two functions are. So unfortunately for you, you just have to keep those functions in mind. You're not going to be asked what are these functions, because they're not in the book, and because I think ESCA in this regulation did not go into details on the difference between them. The only thing it says here that they need to be accredited, either accredited by ESCA or accredited by the free zone regulator or accredited by any other regulatory authority similar to ESCA. Category 5 is their ranking and advice. Ranking and advice, this is usually given to consultants, financial consultants. These, they don't do any transactions. There is no execution. There's no clearing. There's no portfolio management. They're not custodians. They just provide advice. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that there are no capital requirements for this category, for category 5. What are the functions expected? 3. The category manager, compliance officer, and the risk manager. Same thing like category 1, which is the dealing in securities, the brokerage. And finally, the accounting systems. ESCA expects you, if you're going to be licensed, especially for category 1, if you're going to be licensed as a brokerage, you need to have an electronic accounting system. And that electronic accounting system is called the Unified Centralized Back Office System. I've highlighted in yellow because if you notice that ESCA and CISI, they've put them in quotes. That means this is the official name of that accounting system. Of course, you need to always keep a manual of that accounting system. You need to provide technical support, so user manual, technical support, inform ESCA of malfunctions, and inform ESCA of any changes that happen to that accounting system. Basically, that's it. All you need to remember from this page is the name of the accounting software, and that you need to keep an updated copy of the manual, provide technical support, inform ESCA of malfunctions, and inform ESCA if you're going to change that software. And these are just, givens. If you already work in the financial services sector, you know the importance of software to regulators. So I wouldn't bother much with these requirements because I'm pretty sure they are in the back of your mind. What I will just keep in mind or memorize from this page is the name of that accounting software.